Hello and welcome to another YuGiOh Duel video, and today we are bringing you guys a match between Orcust and Altergeist. Orcust being a sort of favourite of the channel as of late, and Altergeist getting back to full power with triple multi-faker, and for once we're in a format where they have triple judgment. Has Altergeist ever been this strong before? Perhaps not. So it'll be interesting to see what the matchup is like for both of these decks. Of course, both do want to go first. So let's head into game one and see how it pans out. So the die roll begins. Very narrow escape, starting off with the scrap recycler. Alright, it is generally considered a slightly better option than the Gisu, depending on which variant you're playing. In this version it's actually not. This is the more controlled variant. Essentially, I think it's like 8 starter cards and then a lot of hand traps and a few extenders in there. So simple play into a Galatea, resetting the wand here in order to get access to the Babel. That makes the graveyard Nightmare live, and if there's an extender, yet there's a Gizmek here. Better to get the Babel out of the deck early. I think it's been added to hand by mistake, but I'm sure they'll be put on the field. There we go. And those two get turned into the IP Masquerena, and then a play is passed back. So pretty strong position for Orcust here, especially against like Altergeist balls where they have to set stuff, so you just interrupt with the IP. But it depends whether the IP can be forced out with something beforehand, which might lead to a less optimal play. So really, Altergeist does not want to commit too much, right? Because if they put too many cards on the table, then everything gets wiped off with a Zeraboros play. But because there are only 2 cards committed here, before attempting to go into the end phase, we're going to see a Skeleton reviving the Dingisu to send 1. So unlikely to see a Zeraboros play here, and then the second one can be got rid of with the Unicorn. Of course, the only difficulty here is it means we're still in the main phase, right? So Altergeist now has the option to carry on playing the game. Perhaps it is actually better to lose your own Babel, go into the end phase with the Zeraboros on the table, and then your opponent will have nothing left. So instead, we see Altergeist has 2 traps available here, and kicks off the turn by flipping up Spoofing. No response there, so down comes a multi-faker, and there's no Orcust name on board to really kick off the plays at the moment. It's just down to that Unicorn, really. So Altergeist gets access to the Silcotus here, and can potentially just get rid of the Unicorn if it proves to be problematic. So the Gizmek in the graveyard is potentially useful for maybe there's a 5 play or something coming up. We'll just see battle phase entered to start getting through the effect, so that will bait the Silcotus effect, and then the Gizmek can go in, punch over the Silcotus, and there's no decent target to revive. But it looks like we're gonna see, yep, Altergeist making a play with the Spoofing now, getting rid of the multi-faker, and I'll probably go for the Conquery. Yep. Adding the Conquery, meaning that there's no point attacking with the Gizmek, it just gives the opponent an additional resource, so not the best position to be in from the Orcust side of things, as of yet. However, there is extra deck space available, so normal summon of Effect Veiler can go into the Barricade Board Blocker, discard the World Wand, which has been drawn, and that's really good from here. That can bring back the Skeleton, which means there can be an additional play before reviving something off that Skeleton. Now, Altergeist is only on that 1 Conquery in hand and the 2 sets, so depending on whether the face down set is valuable or not, it might be easy to just remove that from the game. We see the Skeleton reviving the Galatea in order to build up a few more resources here. The idea at this point is really just how good can the turn be. When the opponent starts playing, you want to build up as many resources as possible in this position with the Orcust cards. There's not really any point in just like mass removing the Spoofing and the set, because the set hasn't proven to be problematic so far. At this point, it may well be a what's it called? manifestation, because there's no Altergeist card in the graveyard. Oh, sorry, there were two in hand for Altergeist, now on 3. And we're going to see the spoofing, probably get rid of the concrete, yep, and turn that into, I would assume it would either be a Melee-Seek or it would be a Faker, depending on whether or not the other set can be used. And goes for the Melee-Seek. Okay, so attempting to apply some pressure there. Of course, the set Crescendo can deal with the effect of the Melee-Seek, so really it's just sort of a way to bait that trap there. Although I suppose there could be a line of play in which the Silcotus bounces something, but there's nothing you'd really want to bounce on the Orcust side. If you bounce the Crescendo, it's still live in the following turn. If you bounce the Babel, it doesn't do anything impactful. And both the two monsters are fairly easy to bring out again, so I think just going into the attack to apply some pressure here was the choice made, putting Orcust down to 7,500, but then being negated and banished as a result. It doesn't look like there's the best set of options here for Altergeist. 2 in hand still. I guess it depends on what those hand traps are and whether they will be able to interact if they are hand traps. From the Orcust side of things, I think I'm wondering if there's a way that I can OTK here, because I did draw a skeleton, and I've got some big monsters on the field already, so yeah, straight into the access code talker of those, trigger its effects, target the Longyesu, so that is now on 5,300. Can't respond to the activation of the access code talker effect, which could just get rid of that Silcotus. So Altergeist is making the play to return the Silk and add a Faker. Now I'm not sure if that is the correct line of play here, because I'm pretty sure the face down at this point is probably, well, I mean, we're going to see it now. It's probably the manifestation, yeah, okay. So it could have been better to just leave the Silcotus there, but regardless, the face down was gonna disappear first. So I'm not sure it made a huge amount of difference, because Concrete wouldn't be live at this point anyway, so Orcust is pretty much free to just get into a position at which it can OTK without playing into a Nibiru. So enter the battle phase, declare an attack, revive some Dengetsu, and there is game damage. And that is Orcust taking game 1, which means that the die roll did have a bit of an impact, but let's see what happens in game 2 when Altergeist gets to start. So Altergeist will be kicking things off, of course. You know, you'd never really expect Altergeist to choose to go second. Starts off by setting 3 and passing for the lengths of things, yep. And not sure if you set 3 and normal summon the Silcotus, so it can't be too bad. One of those sets is probably a manifestation at this point. I don't know if you can see the Orcust hand, but it's horrendous. This is the problem with a lot of Orcust builds at the moment, is they play quite a large number of bricks. And one of the bigger problems is here, as you're seeing right now, even the hand traps sometimes don't interact. So against Altergeist in particular, Ash Blossom is a pretty terrible hand trap here, because it won't be able to negate the effect of the multi-figure, since there is a protocol on the field, so free resources available for Altergeist. Even though there is an Ash Blossom in the hand of Orcust, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah, Altergeist is in a pretty great spot at the moment. Gonna turn those two monsters into a Hexteor and attempt to get the search off from the graveyard, but the protocol can just negate that one. Sure, the Silcotus doesn't get to add anything back, but it's really not too problematic here. You know, Geist is just staring down one set, and as we know, can create damage from pretty much out of nowhere. So I guess the only other thing left is, now that the protocol's been used, there's got to be a way to play around Nibiru. So they've made 2 summons this turn. Going to be setting a manifestation. I think Geist is not gonna attempt to. Oh, okay, it's gonna make a couple more summons. Yeah. So it can get away with making 4 summons, but it can't get away with making 5 summons, so Marionetta becomes a Faker, that's the 3rd summon, and then that can special from deck, and still Geist will be playing around Nibiru, because, so like, this is one of the big things about Geist, is that A lot of the great effects come from main deck monsters, so you don't have to ladder up through your link monsters in your extra deck in order to put powerful effects on the field. And down comes the Orcust, returning a protocol to return the set card, and then in comes some damage off the Hextia, putting Orcust down to 5,300, and then of course the protocol gets set again. And Geist is so far ahead at this point, right? You've got Hextia set up, you've got Silk set up, you've got Protocol set up, and then an Orcust is just committing set pass, and so it doesn't look like the hand is getting Orcust anywhere. Down comes the Faker again. If you want some more information, the set card was a second copy of Ash Blossom, which once again is not live because the Protocol stops the Faker from being negated. So yeah, Geist is in a super strong position, can easily go into the second Hextia here, start massing up the damage. It can still play around the Biru, which is bonkers. The fact that the Protocol remains face up will help play around that anyway, if it's even needed. There's only 5,300 damage to be done on what 2 summons made, and then here we go. Attacks come in, and that is going to be game. So Altergeist taking game 2. And we're going to be moving on to game 3, but once again, as I mentioned before, that dice roll at the beginning is going to be very important, with Orcust being able to choose to go first during game 3. So as long as the hand doesn't include a brick, and it doesn't look like it does with the Armageddonite here as a starter, Orcust could really be running away with this one. Although I suppose, you know, Geist could have plenty of hand traps available. So we see the Armageddonite send the Nightmare, Nightmare banish to send the Wand, Wand banish to summon the Nightmare. This is basically the crux of the more control variant of the deck. Just find your first way into a Galatea, set up a little bit of disruption and hold some hand traps. The advantage, as we saw in the first game, was the inclusion of Gizmek in hand, meant there was easy access to IP, which is bonkers against the Altergeist matchup. Because if you have IP and you have a way into a Zeraboros or into your additional Link summons, you can start removing problems from the field. And here we see there's an extender in the form of Monster Reborn, so exactly the same as before. That additional extender will be able to give access to an IP play, and because it's reborn, it's even better. It can bring back the Armageddonite, send a skeleton, which makes things incredibly potent from the Orca side of things, going into the Dengirsu to attach the skeleton here. So there's now an IP play available here off the Dengirsu and the Armageddonite. And then there's an Orchestration return to get rid of the Nightmare and draw 2 cards. So very, very strong position for Orcust here. Lots of cards in hand, IP and Babel setup. And Geist is going to be kicking off with a duality, revealing a duality, never what you want to see, but it also reveals a Faker and a manifestation. Faker is the ad, of course. It's very rarely anything else. And then down comes a Marionetta, but that gets hit by a Vela. Even if it had managed to set anything, surely there'd be a Zeraboros play to deal with that anyway. So we see a couple of sets from the Altergeist side. Again, you don't want to commit too much to the board in this position from the Altergeist side of things. Because, you know, if your opponent does go for the Zeraboros, it's going to remove all of your resources regardless, so better to lose fewer resources, but you do want to bait a Zeraboros play, so you probably do want to set a little bit more. So here we see the Skeleton revives the Galatea. Galatea puts the Nightmare back into the deck, I believe, and then the IP can go into the Zeraboros, and then when Geist passes into the end phase, Gizmek can trigger, wipe everything off the field, and put Geist into a pretty poor position. You see there was already a manifestation there anyway, but it doesn't really matter. Play just has to pass back with the Zeraboros now live. And an additional starter here from the Girsu, which surely at this point has to be game, right? There are quite a lot of banished cards, so Zeraboros is getting really hefty at this point. And there's just everything available for the Orca side of things. Able to go into Galatea here. Of course, you don't want to trigger your Zeraboros by mistake and accidentally banish everything, so you have to be a little bit careful. Even the Crescendo set here, so if for whatever reason Geist finds a way to survive this turn, then there's still that little bit of extra resource available to keep things going from the Orcust side of things. Note the Galatea is put into a zone that does not point to the extra monster zone, so even if this play didn't go through and the OTK didn't go through, it couldn't be triggered, but there we go. Orcust takes game 3. Was it the die roll that made it up? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Great to be back with these Orcust duels and showing you guys those crisp ultis that we managed to pick up from the Tier 0 games, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget you can get 5% off if you head over to tier0games.com and use the discount code YAZZY5. You do have to be signed in for the code to work, but if you do that you'll get 5% off and you'll be giving back to the channel at the same time, so please do head over, check it out, get some money back and enjoy your YuGiOh goods, and I'll see you guys in the next video.